3 days to go, ladies and gents. Just 3 baby days, and then it's here. The 2019 season is almost upon us, but we've still got 3 teams to preview, and today is the turn of Toro Rosso, which means the last 2 will be Mercedes and Rich Energy Haas F1. That's not necessarily the order it's going to be in. It's going to be a random order, but today it's Red Bull Junior team Toro Rosso. They've had a bit of a switch up once again of lineup with 2, in quotation marks, new drivers joining the team. Last year's lineup of Pierre Gasly and Brendan Hartley. Hartley was, well, the team decided not to keep Brendan Hartley after a difficult year for the Kiwi, and Gasly has been promoted up to the big boys, Red Bull, the big number 1 Red Bull team. So, 2 empty seats for 2019. Big question marks over the summer. Who would fill those seats? Would they try and push Dan Tickdom, Red Bull Junior, up into the seats, but he wasn't able to get enough points on his super license? Question marks whether Stoffel Van Dorn, Esteban Ocon maybe could make the switch over, but they've decided to almost go into the history books of Red Bull and recruit 2 drivers that have had past with the Red Bull family, but both of whom had been kicked out of the team. Danny Kvyat, who was with Toro Rosso, went to Red Bull, then kicked out of Red Bull, back to Toro Rosso, then kicked out of Toro Rosso, is now back at Toro Rosso, just to make it full circle, and most likely he'll probably be kicked out at some point. I hope he doesn't. He's got a lot to prove this year. And in comes rookie, former Red Bull young driver, Alex Albon. He was rejected from the young driver program a couple of years ago. Now he is back with the team, this time with Toro Rosso in their junior Formula 1 team. In his first year, the rookie will hope to do some impressive things in what could be quite a good car from Toro Rosso. Now, looking back at their history, something that I've done for every single team so far, it's a little bit easier with Toro Rosso. No switching names or team being bought out, any of that faffing about, any of that nonsense. Very straightforward, Toro Rosso. First and foremost, Toro Rosso, translated into English, is Red Bull, and the team is actually a young driver team, a B team, a sister team, all of those will do, to the big boys Red Bull Racing. Now, what does this really mean? It means they share a little bit of information. They also, this year, will share the same power unit manufacturers. Both Red Bull and Toro Rosso will be supplied by Honda, the only teams on the grid to be supplied by Honda. The team's technical chief is Graham Watson after James Key left the team for McLaren, and that's still going through a few different changes. Their team chief is Franz Tost, their first entry back in 2006, and the team has had 1 race win, 1 pole position and 1 fastest lap, all coming back in Monza, the Italian Grand Prix in 2008, courtesy of an incredible race, or incredible weekend I really should say, from Sebastian Vettel. But apart from that 1 win, they've never stepped on the podium. Can they do it again this year? Unlikely, but we thought that last year, and Pierre Gasly was able to get a 4th place in just the 2nd race of the season. Now, as mentioned, all change at Toro Rosso in terms of their lineup for this year. Back is Daniel Kvyat. He has got so much to prove this season. Been rejected twice from, well, I suppose the Red Bull family. First of all at Red Bull, the actual big number 1 Big Daddy team. Max Verstappen was coming through. Kvyat made, well, I suppose a name for himself as the Torpedo after smacking into the back of Sebastian Vettel, not once, but twice, in very quick succession at the Russian Grand Prix back in 2016. Verstappen then came into the team for Spain, and still a few question marks on whether Kvyat be put back into the team, but Verstappen went on and won the Spanish Grand Prix that year, his first race for Red Bull, and ever since then it was a huge downslide for Danny Kvyat. Consequently, he was dropped from the team halfway through the year, then brought back into the team for the US Grand Prix, scored a point, but then was dropped again. And for 2018, the team really didn't believe in him, didn't trust in him, and eventually went with Gasly and Brendan Hartley. But he's back after, as I mentioned earlier, a severe lack of options for the team. And also in comes Alex Albon, someone who I'm really interested to see how he performs this year, Alex Albon, because he is the F3 third place man from last year, and I think in his rookie season he actually could impress a lot of people. But first we're going to talk about Danny Kvyat, the Toro Rosso boy, the Torpedo. That's what most people know him as. I think a little bit of an unfair nickname. Wasn't too many incidents in his career, but luckily enough I was at Silverstone 2017, my only ever time going to Silverstone, and I was at the exact corner where he smacked into his teammate Carlos Sainz and took him out on the very first lap. I was there, I saw it in the flesh, so I have witnessed the power of the Torpedo. But Kvyat, let's look at his stats then. From Russia, he's got 2 podiums in his career, one actually coming at the beginning of the 2016 season before he was replaced by Verstappen. That was in China. He was able to get a 3rd place there. He was also able to get a 2nd place in Hungary in 2015. That was his first podium, his best result to date in Formula 1. His highest grid position, however, is only 4th. And what I mean by only 4th is, considering in 2015 and I suppose 16 as well, potentially he could have had a car to maybe do a little bit better than 4th. But I suppose that Red Bull wasn't brilliant in 2015. So 3 times he was being in 4th place on the grid, so I suppose that's fine. And actually, he's not really that old, is Danny Kvyat, being just 24 years of age, even though arguably this is his second stint, his second Formula 1 career, if you will. He's only 24, meaning he's younger than Giovinazzi, who's a rookie this year, younger than Stoffel van Dorn, who's just left at the end of last year. So there's still time to progress for Kvyat. And just quickly before we move on to Albon, I think his target this year will just be trying to be as consistent as he can and to not add to the nickname the Torpedo. And really, after testing, we don't really know where this car is in contention to the rest of the field. Something that Alex Albon is really going to have to try and, I suppose, show his wings if he can, show his potential in what really is going to be such a tight midfield this year, similar to what we saw last year. Gasly was almost instantaneously in that 2nd race in Bahrain able to prove that he deserved a chance. And you can see on screen there's not really many stats we can use for Albon. His racing country he uses is Thailand, but actually he was born in London in the UK, so there's been a few explanations why he has done that, mostly growing up in Thailand, but he has decided to choose that. So he might class the British Grand Prix as his home Grand Prix, and if you ever see any sort of media or Sky Sports pre-race stuff about that, then that explains it hopefully for you there. But 3rd place last year in Formula 2, only behind George Russell and Lando Norris, and he was only about 7 points behind Lando Norris, although Russell and Norris were both in their rookie year, whereas Albon was in his 2nd season. However, let me just say, back in 2016, this was the man fighting for the title in GP3 with Charles Leclerc. Those two were really going at it. So this guy definitely has the speed, and I think actually is going to be consistent over the season, and actually I think will do quite well. So in the head-to-head battle, I'm going to go with Alex Albon. And I sound very confident. Trust me, I'm really not that confident. And as always, you can vote in the top right-hand corner. If you just click that little I button, then you should be able to see a little poll you can vote there. You don't have to sign up or anything. You should just be able to click who you think. But for me, Kvyat, there's still so much pressure on his shoulders at Red Bull. I know he's at Toro Rosso, but I think that whole sort of system, the way Red Bull like to do things, I think it's going to be bad omens for him. The pressure is going to be far too much, and I think actually he would have been better looking for drives elsewhere, maybe at a Williams or something like that, because I really do think naturally he's got a lot of speed, but I'm not too sure how he's going to cope returning to a team that has kicked him down as far as they can into the mud, and I think they're only going to do it again if the likes of Dan Ticktum is going to be able to get into Formula 1, and potentially that could happen halfway through the season. But I'd love to be proved wrong, because I do think he's quick and I do think he deserves another chance in Formula 1. But Albon, for me, I think is just a little bit more polished. He's not the flashy driver like a Daniel Ricciardo or anything like that. He's more of a laid-back driver, I would say, similar to a Hülkenberg, a Carlos Sainz. gets the job done, and that's what I'm looking forward to seeing this year. But I'd love to know your thoughts. Is the Torpedo gonna be smashing his way through the grid, or is he gonna calm his act down a little bit and really score some solid points for Toro Rosso? But that is it for today. Thank you for watching. Just 2 more previews to go, and just a reminder, in the description there will be a link and the code to my fantasy league if you want to join before the Australian Grand Prix. You've only got a couple more days to do that, but thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.